Hi, good morning. Good morning. It's actually not morning anymore, but I had a good morning. Oh my goodness, it's RASHIDA McKENZIE is in the house. Yes. And she's joining me, and I love this, on Speak to Me First podcast show, which you can be found on anywhere you get your podcast, in particularly, Anchor FM, Spotify, you name it. She's out there in the universe. Yes, she is. And who am I? I'm Toy Johnson-Vincent, your no sugarcoating coach. But today isn't all about me. It's about resilience. It's about being an author. It's about a speaker background. It's about so much more than just, hey, hanging out. We do things on this platform to get people noticed, even more than they were before they came on board. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and let my guest introduce herself. And we definitely want to thank the national as well as international audience out here today. Go right ahead, RASHIDA. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Toy?
Good, good. I'm telling you, I'm so happy we met and connected on Facebook, and of course LinkedIn now. And yeah, we've been sharing and sharing and sharing. Sharing is caring, and we just want to get right into it. What you're up to, and give us some tips from your book. Let's talk about it. Who you are, what is your book all about, and how can you help others?
Yes, so my name is RASHIDA McKENZIE, like you said, and I move women in business from feeling stuck to unstoppable. So they work with me when they need more strategies, systems, and support around what they're building so that they can get unstuck. And like you said, I did recently write a book. It's called Give Yourself Grace, Girl. I have it with my notes here.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm excited about the message and just the creation of it, because it came from, in all honesty, my own stuckness, or what I call feeling like I was in a slump. And so I think it's really going to allow women to free themselves from this idea of having to be perfect or have it all together before they allow themselves to profit or live in their purpose.
I'm guilty of that. I said, if it isn't right, no, this doesn't look good. No, oh, well, the hair is right. I got to do a Zoom. I got to do this. Being perfect, just in general, just those little things can really affect how you get your business together, or as a startup, or just an entrepreneur, or just people who are working traditional 9 to 5. Is that right or wrong? Or
no, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head, because it keeps us from showing up when we feel like, oh, I'm not going to turn on the camera until this hair is laid just right, or I have the exact words that I want to say. It causes us to just overthink. And the longer we overthink it, the more we second guess ourselves. The more we second guess ourselves, the more we move into doubt, and then we never do it. And so the idea behind the book is just to release that and ask yourself what it would look like if you just put it out there. And it's from that place that you gain the power, because the more you do it, it's like building a muscle, and it becomes a strength. All your quirks, all your imperfections are actually the things that people want to see from you.
Wow. I mean, when you said the word, you hit it right there. And I want to figure the word grace, and then we put the word imperfections. It's kind of like, well, a lot of us, and this book is geared towards primarily women, or is it for everyone? Well, we're always trying to be graceful. A lot of it is just how we grew up and how we were taught from early on, and I get that. But why is that so challenging, you think, for women? I mean, they're going to read your book, they're looking for all the tips and how-tos and your own struggle that you may have had, which we'd love to hear that. And just really, what is this first step for somebody if they're in those shoes, or perhaps they were in your shoes, which you're going to share?
Yeah. So I think the first step is just to tell yourself the truth. Like you said, it's how we're taught to kind of just cover up, and even as Black women, to push through, to keep going instead of addressing the pain, right? So we try to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and feel like it's going to heal without really figuring out what it is that is causing us to feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to give you a little bit of background, that was definitely me. Prior to this life and coaching women, I actually owned a concierge service where I worked with executive women. I had an opportunity to work at the White House, the Obama White House for a stint, and just was able to see the behind the scenes of how powerful women get things done and just their mindset in terms of what that looks like. But it didn't translate right into my own life originally. So when I started my own business, I was helping all of these other women keep it together, but at home, it was falling apart for me.
Wow.
And so we just been taught to go, 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 you know, like go, hustle, grind, all of those things. But I liken it to an athlete. You also have to build in rest. And that's hard for us to do.
Wow.
It's hard for us to build in rest and recovery, but that's also a strategic piece, right? It's not just deciding like, I don't feel like it today. It's having that set up as something that you go to on a regular basis because you work so hard.
But one thing you said, and about, you know, just that it's almost that downtime, because we are on the path of success. I mean, a lot of people, and believe it or not, I mean, we just got to put it out there. Not everyone is really seeking success. Now, success means different things to different people. And so when we think about in terms of the professional side and the entrepreneur side, okay, yeah, everybody's trying to, you know, get the next, if it's not the next dollar that they are chasing, it's something else just to get their name out there, their brand or rebrand. But in general, the ones who are, it's like you need that downtime to think it, because in the mindset. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, why do we get stuck there? I mean, I've had it happen to me and I had to ask why. I mean, I'm successful at one thing, but then I'm doing too much. And then I want it all in one thing. And then that didn't work. And then I start to compartmentalize it. And then, you know, so I just want to know, you know, there's some tips on that where we can just start, you know, doing things in a better way.
Yeah, so I would back up a little bit, and I would say that everyone wants success.
Okay.
I don't think there's anyone that doesn't want to be successful. However, here's the tip. I think that we have to get clear and be able to define what that success looks like for ourselves.
Okay.
Because again, we've been taught what to aspire to. And a lot of times you will see people get all the way up. I said, all the way up to the door, turn the doorknob before they realize like, this is not at all what I wanted. Maybe it was encouraged for them growing up, or it was the path where they thought it would make the most money, but it wasn't something that they intentionally chose. And I think that happens to the best of us, but just like you chose that, you get to re-choose, you get to redecide which way that you want to go. So I think the key is to get clear about what it is that success looks like for you, because that will determine the way that you work. It will determine the way that you show up for your family. And that looks different for everybody. And it's okay, but you got to be clear on what that looks like for you and stand on that and create boundaries around that.
Yes. And I'm glad you backed that right up to where I made that statement, which and as I'm thinking about it right now, is that you're right, because when I'm saying, okay, if everyone, no, we all realistically want to be successful. It may not be in business. It may be from a family perspective. It could be from some other part of your life, because we are not really just one dimensional. And although you may not be seeking the professional side or entrepreneurship side, but just being successful as a family, whether it's a mom, a dad, you know, child, we all, no matter age, etc. So yeah, I got that. Yeah, thanks for backing that up. That's what you know, I love it. I mean, look, we're on, you know, Speak to Me First podcast show. I'm the No Sugarcoating Coach. And if I don't sugarcoat it, then neither should my guest.
I know that's
There you go. But I love it. I love it. How long have you, you know, been coaching and speaking, and, you know, you're an author. I know it's been a while, or I mean,
So I would say, so there's a long version and a short version. I'm gonna try to give you the condensed version.
We're
However,
on a timer.
I know it is, where I am at this point in my life, I know has always been my calling, right? Yeah. So even as a young girl, I wrote, I spoke. My original business my first business that I ever started was a speaking business for girls, and just trying to improve and increase their self-esteem. So I always knew that I wanted to do something along those lines. However, life gets in the way, right? Or maybe when you initially set out to do something, it doesn't look the way that you thought it would look. It doesn't go the way that you thought it would go. And again, that brings us back to kind of questioning, like, is this meant for me? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And so that's where you give yourself grace and allow yourself the space to really ask yourself, because our time is limited, Toy. What is it that I want to do with this life of mine? And I knew that I've always known that I wanted to be in business and work with women. And so in some capacity, when I look at the thread, I have all of my life for a very long time, going back to high school. So formally, like I said, pre-pandemic, I was started to get into speaking, but for 7 years prior, I owned my own business. So I bring all of that experience with me into coaching women now into getting unstuck and moving to unstoppable.
Unstuck, from unstuck. Are you listening? When the audience hears this and this recording goes out to the world, the globe, there are two things: unstuck, from unstuck to unstoppable.
There you go.
And I mean, amazing. I mean, hashtag it, people. Come on. You got to do this. We're talking with RASHIDA McKENZIE, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah, that's a hopping place over there. I have some family out of Washington, D.C. In fact, with all due, I probably should have been born in Washington, D.C., but my mom wound up in New York. But anyway, so I do have lots of extended family in Washington, D.C., went there every summer. So I thank you. It's a pleasure to have somebody from that area on the show. And in fact, my master coach is from that Baltimore area, Mr. Leroy. So we got him going, but I thank you so much. A lot of talent there. And one of the things that with that unstuck to unstoppable, we have to really, really gather that. We have to utilize what you just said. Audience, this is not a joke. I mean, what RASHIDA is saying, for a lot of us women out there, we know we have good intentions regarding business or startup or what have you with our families. You don't want to feel like a failure because you say, oh, that didn't work, and so you quit.
Yes.
Do people quit often because they just feel that it'll never come to fruition? I mean, what is really your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think at the core, it is a belief. And it starts with that belief, right? Okay. And that's part of what I talk about in the book, is laying that foundation where you do have to have an unwavering belief in your ability in yourself, and realizing that you are capable and you've always been capable. But usually what happens, and why we give up in the middle, is because we spend so much time comparing and looking at other people's journey and feeling like our timeline should align with theirs when we all have our own. So if you feel like you're on the verge of wanting to quit, or you've been trying things and it's not sticking, I would recommend that you simply find peace in your own pace. And really, there's no time limit. Okay. There's an urgency that we all live with, because again, we know that our time is limited, but there is no time limit on how long it takes. So the idea is that if you just show up every day and do the work and put one foot in front of the other, that it's inevitable that it will happen. But we usually give up right before it does.
Yes. And many times I said, oh, I'm done. I may be the no sugar coating coach, but I needed to sprinkle some sugar right back in my brain and my mindset and say, and if I look at the women that come before me, because, for me, do you find that in my case, I found that the women before me, and my mom is no longer with us, and my aunt and grandmother, maternal side, but they were all three very strong women. And when people say use the word strong women, but I mean, they were strong in terms of in every way. You know, raised by a single parent, that scenario, but then, and my mother being highly educated, that really helped. But in the same token, the drive was there. So I remember that my grandmother with her own business, owning brownstones in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. My aunt, physical education educator in the school system on Long Island. And I really kind of look at that. And I say sometimes when I think I want to quit, I start to think back and say, my grandmother with her 8th or 9th grade education, owner of her own beauty salons and brownstones in Brooklyn, New York, that still exist. There's no way that I have even the right to even think about giving up. And if I do think about it, I have to go back and remind myself, whose shoulders am I standing on? So, you know, how does that play into with women getting unstuck? Is that something they could look back to or say, hey, refer to?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think it is. And I think the beauty of that and that process that you described is like, you know, that if you've been able to see it, that it's also possible for you too. So sometimes you need that reminder because we feel like we're in it alone. And that's why it's important to do business and to do life in community, because a lot of times we try to feel like we have it all together and build in a silo. But that's what I love about the coaching process, is that it allows you to connect with somebody else that can tap into your vision and hold you accountable for not what I want for you, but what you say that you want for yourself. So it's always good to surround ourselves. I think we're coming back to that, but that's the root of, like you said, how our mothers and grandmothers grew up. It was about community and really encouraging and relying on one another in the process. But yeah, know that you don't have to do it alone. I think that where there's evidence, then it just allows you to know that it's possible for you too.
Wow, I like it because, you know, I love your positivity. You're sending a huge message today to many women around the globe who will listen ultimately to your podcast episode. And the thing is that it doesn't matter where you are. It just matters that you just start somewhere and don't give up.
Yes, that's
don't give up. Pandemic, endemic, doesn't matter what demic, just don't give up. So how is that affected? I'm going to move into a different area as we're going to, you know, try to capture everything about you, obviously being an author, a speaker, and a business strategist. I love just the title, but you're more than just a title, because you just described how you do things. And I like the way you think, because I like to think there's a strategy. I'm always trying to think, well, wait a minute, that didn't work. Let me try something else. Or I'm okay with telling people, and tell me if this happens. I'm okay with kind of telling people, you know, how they should go, or they can, you know, go down this road or that road. And then when it gets to my own stuff, I'm like, where's RASHIDA McKENZIE right now? So does your book address any of that really, you know, briefly, or what in terms of your chapters in the book that may address some of that for women?
Yeah, so I think it happens to the best of us, where we feel like we're the only ones that this experience has occurred. Like that we're the only ones that are experiencing difficulty. One of the things that I talk about in the book is a story about how I was on bed rest with my daughter after losing my first pregnancy. And so, as you can imagine, that requires a different type of mindset, because you've already experienced the worst. And so sometimes you hold on to that moving into your next season. And I remember one of the nurses coming in and just bringing me back and letting me know that she said to me, you know, just talk to the baby, right? Talk to the baby, pray over your baby, and just be present, because all you have is today anyway. And I think it's those things that shift our thinking in terms of like, okay, she's seen this before. So having somebody there to kind of move you through that mindset and remind you that there is, like, you to stay present, but to also know that you can get, if you just focus on one space and one place at a time, that there is a rainbow and beauty on the other side of what we've been through. So I think that is and hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think that's the importance of really realizing and having other people there to help you get through, and really, and just tying it back, really birth what's been there, but maybe you've been fearful, or again have experienced some disappointment or heartache around that before. So,
yes, yeah. And I know one thing, and you put that very eloquently, because, and thank you for sharing, that's a personal story, but that's what we do. And especially as if you're author and speakers, on my platform, I started eventually, I just said, I'm just going to tell my story, and it's personal. It's not a club that anybody wants to be in. The story of me losing my daughter in my, early to mid 20s. And again, that means it's two people. So that means it affected obviously the father of my daughter's, so in losing to congenital heart disease, nothing that we can do about it. It just happens. It means congenital means at birth. And my daughter lived for 2 years. And her beautiful name, Kiana, and she was just as beautiful as her name and how we spelled it with the Q. So, but you have to imagine over the years, and you start thinking, well, what else, could I do? Do you just stop your life completely? That would not have been good. And most people will tell you, you don't come back from a loss like that. Yeah. So the resilience factor, which we all have, just to say, we do have a resilience factor. You never forget. You can't get that. That's with me internally for the rest of my life. But I also say, well, now that I have a platform, I can speak on such things that has happened, and then, really help to elevate someone else's spirit to say, you know what, but I'm still here.
Absolutely. And even just going back to the beginning of what we talked about is like, right, finding that connection and being able to release that idea of perfection, and that things don't happen, or that, that life is just a straight and smooth line. Right. So even by sharing that story, like you said, we're already connected, right? Yes. In terms of having similar experiences. Yes. And so by sharing, by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, it creates that connection. And that connection is what creates unduplicatable success. Because I have my own story, you have your own story, right. And the way that we bring that story into what we do, no one can copy, take, steal, or duplicate, right? So it's very important to start to open up and share. Whereas before, it's very hard to do, as you know, it's very hard to do.
Oh yes, and you feel vulnerable. And I think as women, we're vulnerable just because, and we need to, but we have to understand that there is a new day, and there's something that, and I'm sure everybody has heard it, joy comes in the morning. And that's what I've stood by since my early 20s of losing my precious baby girl, Kiana. And I just say joy comes in the morning. If it could be job loss, it could be all sorts of loss. We have pandemic. People have lost their lives just from health. And unfortunately contracting COVID. So we do have to understand that, I guess, as women, like you say, and know your strengths. I mean, we all have challenges, but your book is going to help us understand and how to regroup and build off of whatever has happened in your life. I love just the word grace. There's some women out there with the name Grace, I used to think, oh, I don't like my name. I don't like my name. And then I got older, I said, wait a minute, that's kind of a cool name. You know, even if people call me Troy, and I'm like, no, that's not my, and they said LaToya. I said, no, that's not my name. And so it's not short for anything. But anyway, and in the African culture, they pronounce it Toye.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, you have to learn to love, like, self-care. It seems like a lot with your book.
Yes.
And people need to be able to get to that book. I want to find out, where can people contact you, or where can they access your book?
Sure. So they can get the book on my website, www.RASHIDAMckenzie.com. It's also available on Amazon, at Barnes and Noble, and wherever you buy books.
Yeah. Now you heard that. Now everybody's going to hear this. When we put this out into the universe and upload it to all of the social media platforms, they're going to say, wait a minute, where can I reach out? I need a business strategist. Well, she's talking to me. I like what she said. I want to connect with her. I know you're on Facebook, but where are you on all social media platforms, or where would you prefer people try to connect with you?
You can find me in the metaverse. So I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram is usually where I hang out online.
Yes, yes. And it's similar to myself. Getting well, first of all, I used to not be on social media at all. And then people would say, well, you know, you're a speaker, you need to be here. Oh, well, you're an HR person, my primary background, and you need to be there. And So I tell people, be wherever you are comfortable being.
Absolutely.
Right. And in life, shouldn't we not think about it as something with women as in that light? If you could touch a little bit on that, because we're just always so uncomfortable, most of us.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's the grace that you're giving yourself, because it's no need. There's no need for you to be uncomfortable, because your space is wherever you are. Right. So if I'm posting something, if I'm saying something, if I'm speaking, it's from a place where I'm offering a shared experience. And I always say my only job is to show up, is to share. And then what y'all do with it, what people do with it is up to them. So I think it comes from practice, and it's a daily practice. And one tip that I would give, and I would like to leave people with, is I think what happens is a lot of times we wake up in service mode, right? We wake up and somebody needs something from us, or they need us to do something. And so really taking the time and the space to do what I call master your mornings and get quiet, get clear, set a clear intention for the day. Think about the things that you want to leave for your family. What is it that you want to accomplish in your business? How are you going to take care of your body before everyone else is putting in a request or asking questions of you? Is a really helpful thing to do, to kind of get into a space where you become more confident, where you become more clear, so that you can move through your day with clarity.
And that's one thing, because obviously that comes from a coaching perspective, because we talk about knowing who you are, capital Y-O-U. I just literally got off of a coaching boot camp where I was coaching a client, and we did that so the whole world can see it. I was sharing that out and talking about knowing who you are, because individually they only knew who they were as it related to their job and their title. And so that cannot continue.
That's chapter 1. That's called
hold that book up. Hold your book up again. I'm going to try to get a screenshot with you with that beautiful smile and book. Yes. All right. We got it. Yeah. And I mean, you got to know who you are, and the clarity, you know, and if you're having so much jumbo mumbo going on in your brain, and a lot of us, we learn different. I talk about it, learning challenges from a kid, right? I talk about that. I know I need to step back. I don't take things in huge things coming at me all at once. I take it in little chunks, and then I make it work for me. And I found that time management for me really works, because if you're all over the place, you absolutely get nothing done.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
done. And so even in our lives, have grace, self-care. Think about it. Like we said, give yourself grace.
Right.
Because if you're waiting for someone else to give you yeah, you're doing an excellent job, you're patting yourself. No, give yourself. It really starts and ends with capital YOU. That's what I talk about even as a certified life coach. And I'm so happy that you brought it home, in your book. So we know where to get the book. Before we just shut this down today, and I wish we had so much more time because I know you're not. We need to do a live. We need to do a live and talk about this. And there's so many women have gone through, whether it's, an unfortunate with what happened with their pregnancy, or what is somebody in my case, again, that lost a child. Doesn't matter when they lost it, but just the fact that a loss is a loss for women.
Yeah.
Okay. And it doesn't mean it doesn't affect men. Of course it does. Because, but we want to, if we're honing in on what has happened there, that's a great thing. We could talk about that too, but also, and still bring your book and maybe go through the chapters.
Yeah, I would love
and
to
talk about it, at one point, and do a live. I don't mind Instagram. You pick the platform, I'll show up. So I wanted just to say that what's next for you as we are closing this down? What is next on your agenda? Something coming up, an event, anywhere where people can connect?
So I think the best way, there's so much coming up. There's so much in store, especially around the book. I'm really adamant on making sure that this message is heard this year. So I've been sharing it in multiple different ways. So I'm sure if you go to my website, you'll be able to see what's coming up and what's a good fit for you. Because when I tell you it is a creative endeavor that I have been on to really make sure that women grasp what I'm saying in this book, because I feel like it is what's going to take them to the next level. So last week we just did a partnership with a spin class where we literally took women on an immersive journey on bikes through the pages of the book so that they could feel and have that mind, body, spirit connection in terms of what we were talking about. So that's exciting. I have so much more coming up. So yes, it's just those things that are on my plate, and I'm sure you can catch me speaking, but I have a list of upcoming events on the website.
Excellent. And like I said, I think we shouldn't sleep on this, the opportunity to bring a whole lot of women and just do something live, and they can chime in and everything. And maybe they have some takeaways. It'll be more eyes on you, and it'll be more eyes on me. And that's what happens, what they call professional support. Doesn't cost a thing. It does involve time. And so, in respectful of one another's time, but, I just say, hey, that would make a great, great presentation for somebody out there needs to hear what you, Rashida McKenzie, author, speaker, business strategist, mom, do it all, everything, Zoom, and a podcast guest now on the Speak to Me First podcast show. I'm so thankful that you joined today. We're going to get this out to you. Yeah, we want to make sure we get the episode. We'll share that link. I will definitely do that so that you can share it to any of your contacts, wherever you want it to be shared. And I'll make sure that I tag you and you tag me, vice versa. And let's just keep it out there. I know, first of all, you're already successful. So it's continued success and blessings. Again, I'm Toy Johnson-Vincent, your no sugarcoating coach. I've been talking with the wonderful, delightful, talented, just phenomenal woman, okay, on my platform today, Speak to Me First podcast show. You can land this podcast right on or from your iPhone or your Android. Doesn't matter about the phone. Just listen, subscribe, like, and share. Share is caring. And as I say when I end all of my broadcasts, success is in your future. And I'm going to say so long for now. And Miss Rashida, I am going to dial your number when I get off of this broadcast. So make sure that phone is on. Take care now. Bye.
Bye.